Welcome, folks. This is Fred Gleek. I'm here with Joshua Tallent. Joshua, thank you for taking the time to be with me.
Hey, Fred. Great to be with you.
Hey, one of the things, a lot of the people who watch and listen to what I do and think I actually have some reason for being have been starting to get more involved in your area of expertise, which is the Kindle and publishing to the Kindle. Before we get started, I think, and I'm going to start hammering you with questions, why don't you tell folks exactly what you do and your company does and how they can use your services if they choose to?
Okay. Well, we create ebooks both for the Kindle platform and for every other platform, Barnes & Noble, Apple, etc. We create them both for authors and for publishers. So whether you're an independent author who's going your own way, self-publishing it, or whether you're a publisher, mid-size, small, large, whatever, we help create those ebooks, give them back to you, and then you can go put them up for sale. We specialize in complex content. We do children's books. We do fixed layout ebooks for all the major platforms. We do nonfiction content that's really complex, like cookbooks or business books, things like that. So basically, we specialize in those things, but we also work with fiction and basic nonfiction as well.
I heard the word complex in there a few times. The term enhanced ebook is now being used a lot, where you embed audio and video. Is that also something you're doing?
We also do enhanced ebooks in that regard, yeah. It's kind of limited in some ways because right now you can only upload those to iBooks, to the Apple system, because no one else is actually accepting those files yet from independent authors and small publishers. They're only doing it on a kind of a case-by-case basis with the larger publishers.
Would that be considered even more complex? Is that what we call it?
No, actually, audio and video is not very complex. We can do that pretty easily, and it's actually just a flat fee to be able to do it. But it's something that it minimizes your sales potential for a book if you only want to sell it with the audio and video. So a lot of times we say, we can do the enhanced version of that book that you can upload to Apple, but then for the other retailers, just make a version that doesn't have those enhancements and point people to your website or some other area where they can see the video.
Got it. Do we anticipate that in the future the other formats will probably be adopting something similar? I would imagine, right?
Yeah, they're picking it up slowly. It's mostly a matter of support on the different devices. The Barnes & Noble Nook, obviously, it can't support video. The Nook Color can, but then they have back-end issues trying to get that content from publishers and authors into their system. They just don't have an automated way of doing it yet. So over the next year or two, we'll probably see more and more of these devices, especially the color devices like the Kindle Fire, the Nook Color, the Nook Tablet. We'll see them start to adopt more audio and video capabilities, and in addition to that, making it more easy for these smaller publishers and independent authors to upload content into the system that way.
Cool. Now, my question for you to start out, first off, let me give a little bit of background here. What happened was I had somebody else who was uploading all of my content to Smashwords, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But they did that, and then I ended up with my books in a Kindle format, et cetera, et cetera. But when I tried to start doing this myself, and I mean, admittedly, I'm not one of the brightest bulbs in the set because I'm a Mac user from the very beginning. I've never even touched a PC. My wife is the one that went to MIT, so I'm not the smart one in the group. But what I found was this, that when I tried to do it myself with a simple Word document to upload my file to the Kindle, I found myself really confused at all of the information out there. My question is this: is Amazon making it intentionally difficult so that people like you can stay in business?
No, definitely not. I mean, they try to make it as easy as they can. I think the problem is that they're trying to make it easy when in reality it's not easy. In reality, ebook development is not an easy thing to do, especially for fiction, very, very non-complex content. It can be fairly straightforward, but it's never a just push a button and it happens kind of thing. And this actually is my beef with companies like Smashwords. I love Mark Coker; he's a great guy, but I think Smashwords has issues in that it makes people expect that they can just upload a file and turn it into an ebook with one button, and that's not the way it really is. There's a lot of work that goes into it, either on the front end, for instance in Microsoft Word, doing all of the styles correctly and using the styles function in Word, or on the back end, actually turning that Word document into HTML and doing all the styling and the formatting there. So one way or the other, you have to do some work. Yeah, it's just not something that is going to ever be this, push a button and it happens kind of conversion process.
Gotcha. You mentioned, again, that word complex, and you used it primarily in response to people who were in the nonfiction realm as opposed to the fiction realm. Most of the people listening to this and myself are involved. We're involved primarily in the nonfiction realm, primarily with sort of business how-to for the most part. And I was really, really struck by how difficult it seemed to do the basics, which is, let's format it so the chapters show up a certain way, and let's make it so a table of contents shows up. Now, is it possible, and I know that it's always great when I can feed you more business from people who throw up their hands and say, crap, I can't do this. But is it really possible for someone at my level of intellect to figure out how to do this ourselves?
Oh yeah. The key though is to go into HTML and learn enough HTML to be able to do it there, not to try to do it in Microsoft Word. Yeah, right. That's the typical response I get when I say that. But it's like going to print. Most authors are not going to go and mess with InDesign and create their own print book. They may do it in Word because they're familiar with Word. But if you really want to do a high-quality print job, most of the time people say go to InDesign or Quark or a professional layout program because you get more functionality, you get more features that you can use to do that work. And the same thing is true of ebooks. If you really want to get the best quality, if you really want to have the best results, then go to HTML because that's really what ebooks are written in. So go to the HTML formats, create the HTML files and do all of your styling in HTML and CSS, and then it'd be really straightforward from that point to go into the ebook formats.
Let's just say that for someone like me or a lot of the people that I work with who just want to have a very simple ebook that has chapter headings and a table of content, nothing fancier than that, for them, can we skip the whole HTML step and just use Microsoft Word to upload?
You can. The difficulty is that there are other things you really want to be able to have that you may not even think about. For instance, on the Kindle device, there's a function that allows someone to jump from chapter to chapter within a book. That's actually done in an XML file that's part of the whole Kindle building, the MobiPocket building system. And I cover that in my book, Kindle Formatting, where I'd actually talk about how can you take a Word document and turn it into a Kindle book. It's possible. It's just something that you really have to kind of top-heavy the book. You have to top-load the book with the styling in Word. Actually use the styles feature. So instead of using a tab or 5 non-breaking spaces for your indents, make sure that that's an actual style, a paragraph style in Word. Make sure your headings are all marked consistently as heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and you're adjusting the styles based on that in Microsoft Word. If you do that properly, then you could take the Word document, run it into the Kindle Gen or into MobiPocket Creator, and have it output a Kindle book for you, or upload it directly to the Amazon system and have a Kindle book created by their system in the back end, which uses the same system, the tools essentially. But you're still going to be missing a couple of things that you probably would really want that would be better for you. You would have to go to HTML for those things. But in general, you could if you really do a good job in the styling in Word, then you could upload it to Amazon, or you could run it through MobiPocket Creator, and you could create your own ebook that way. And then maybe later down the road, come back to it and say, okay, now I'm going to learn some HTML. Or I'm going to learn a little bit more about the Kindle format. I'm going to follow the instructions and come up with a couple of extra features that would be nice to have inside the ebook as well.
So you mentioned there your book, which is something that most people probably watching or listening to this should get a hold of. Where do they get the book? What's the name of it?
It's called Kindle Formatting, the Complete Guide. You can get it at Amazon, or you can buy it at Barnes & Noble as an EPUB file.
Got it. Okay, so, and that will help me move from sort of, really, really sort of stupid level up to the next level, which is moderately competent, perhaps?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the goal of the book is to cover not just Microsoft Word and how to use Word to get the output that you want, but it actually goes through each and every HTML code that you would need. It explains how to handle poetry, how to handle boxed content, sidebars, pull quotes. It covers the table of contents, all of the actual building of the book itself, using the tools, the MobiPocket Creator tools. I'm actually working on it up because the new Kindle format that's coming out has a bunch of extra features and new things that need to be covered as well. But it's still the book as it stands now is going to be a really good resource for anybody who wants to get their hands dirty, whether they're just dealing with the Word document itself or if they really want to get into the code and mess with the HTML.
Just to let you know, I did buy the book. I quickly handed it to my wife, who said, "Okay, I'll take care of it from now on." So hopefully she's gleaning a lot of great ideas from there. So let's go to the idea of, what really is a Kindle book, and is that a term that we use kind of loosely to define anything of any length? Are there certain specifications that one must have? Must it be a certain number of words long or a certain number of pages? How does that work?
It doesn't have to be. According to Amazon, it can be any length, whether that's a couple of pages or 1,000 or 1,500 or whatever, however long you want it to be. The real goal is for sales to figure out what's going to sell and what's going to make the most sense to the consumer. Obviously, if you have a book that's already in print, most of the time you want to take that book and just do a straight development of that book into an ebook. Sometimes maybe moving things around or adding features or taking out things that don't fit. But in general, it would be a one-for-one conversion. On the other hand, you might, if let's say you had a nonfiction title that was a business book with chapters written by individual people, you could very easily split that up into multiple books, sell each chapter as its own ebook for 99 cents or $1.99 or something, and in that way target the audience, because someone might be interested in chapter 4 of the book but not in the rest of the book at all. And so you target them directly by saying, okay, here's a piece of this book, and it's about this specific topic. And there's a lot of ways to do it, but no, there's no limitation. You can have an ebook that's 1 page or an ebook that's 10,000 pages, and it's all the same thing to a Kindle.
Yeah, just like what you described. Same thing with CDs. Very seldom, except for I can think of a couple of albums, as I use the term, where I would have liked every single track, but very infrequent. Yeah. My other thought is this. When I was driving in the car the other day, I was thinking about, because I've got a marketing background, I was thinking about testing. Does Amazon allow you, whether they allow you explicitly or implicitly, to take the same exact content and create 3 separate ebooks that are all the same content but call them by different titles to see which title works?
I don't think that they would have a problem with you doing it necessarily. I don't think they check for it. It may be annoying to you in the end, because then you've got 3 titles up there. People are it'd be great for marketing to figure out which one they purchase, but then you also lose you're not focusing your marketing on one title, and therefore your page rank your ranking within the system is going to be not as high as it could be otherwise.
Ranking within the system. Explain to me what that means.
Well, like within the categories. Let's say you chose a business category for that book. If all 3 of those books are for sale in that same category, they're actually competing with each other for sales ranking. And so usually I think people, when they're kind of searching through content, if they don't know what they're looking for, they're pretty likely to go to a specific category they're interested in and look at the top 10 books. And if you have all 3 books there that are the same content but just different names, they may be lower down, even below that top 10. Whereas if you had one book that was named the right thing already, then it could be in that top 10 and get more sales. So the question is, what's the benefit? What's the purpose of the marketing? You might be able to do better just doing a focus group instead of trying to sell it on Kindle and use the whole Kindle system as a focus group.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So then my next question, based on what you just answered, is this. I'm confused by how they do the ranking then. Is the ranking done? You can ask Amazon Kindle's book area to give you the bestsellers overall, and then you can also ask for the bestsellers within a category. Is that correct?
Well, if you delve down into a category, I think the default view is to look at the top sellers. It ranks them. It orders them by the top sellers in that category. So, and that's on the Kindle store or within the Kindle device as well, if you're going to the store that way.
Got it. So one can look at the bestsellers overall in Kindle, or one can look for the bestsellers within a category.
Right.
Got it. And I understand what you're saying with regards to the multiple titles. So what you're suggesting is, again, to not dilute yourself and your efforts, to do that testing maybe before you deliver it or put it into the Kindle store, right?
Right.
Got it. Okay. So then what about, as again, a marketing person, my thought was, boy, this is a great way to generate a lot of leads for people who are interested in my topic. And my thought was initially to put the book at as low a price as possible if my goal was to maximize the number of leads. But then I thought to myself, maybe I'm going down the wrong path here, because if I see a book that costs 99 cents, my perception of value of content there might be different than when I see a book for $4.99. Can you help me on that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting play here because you're right that you can get more sales if you're at that 99-cent price point. But the question is, are those people actually people who you will want to buy the book because it's an actual lead for you? So honestly, I don't. It's one of those questions you have to play with. What I would say is set the regular list price at $4.99, and then every once in a while go in there and drop it to 99 cents, and in the description give on sale for the month of December at 99 cents, or whatever, so that people know that there's still, that the value of the book is higher in general, but that you're offering it for sale. That's one of the things that I don't like currently about the systems, whether it's Amazon, or wherever, is that they don't show you giving a discount, right? If you change the sale price, you're just changing the sale price.
Yep.
They don't show it as here's my normal price and here's my discounted price. And that's not something that they've really thought through that much, I think.
Yeah, I had another question on that if I can get it out of my head here. With regards to pricing, I know that there's a point at which I think it's $2.99. From $2.99 to $9.99, Amazon bumps up your percentage from a 30-70 to a 70-30 split. Is that correct?
It's 35-70, yeah.
35-70 is 105%. So we have a little.
No, it's 35% if it's below $2.99 or above $9.99. 70% if it's in that range. Yeah.
Gotcha. And so there would be a little bit of a consideration there. But again, people that are sort of following sort of my model are looking not necessarily to maximize dollars from the sale of an individual ebook, but to maximize the value of that customer long term. Another additional question is Amazon, as I understand it, unless it's changed with physical books, would never give you the names or the email addresses of people who bought the books. So I'd like to hear, I have sort of my idea, but I'd like to hear what's your best idea for finding a way to get those people to get in touch with you to say, hey, here I am, I bought your book.
The real goal is to get them to your website, right? You should have a very strong web presence, no matter what kind of book you're writing, whether it's a novel or a business book or whatever. But if you have a business book, you should definitely have a really strong web presence. Point them to the website, offer them, say in the book itself, have a section there that says, hey, go to our website to get free reports or free information or sign up for our newsletter or whatever. Or even, in some cases, if you have a really complex book and you just can't do maybe a book that has forms or something that's really better in print and doesn't work in an ebook as well, then you say, hey, go to the website to download a free PDF of these forms so you can print them out and actually follow the steps or do the whatever you're doing. And that brings people to the site. Then you gather their email address from that and use them, put them on your mailing list or however you're going to handle that. That's, I think, the best approach to getting that information from them.
And again, Amazon has no restrictions about what you put inside your book, correct?
They do have some restrictions, but not in that regard. Obviously, they have content restrictions and they're cautious about things. And some of the other retailers, like Apple, doesn't want you to ever mention in the book the Kindle or the Kindle version or whatever. They don't want you to sell your other versions of your ebook. So they have restrictions like that as well. But no, if you say go to my website or anything like that, none of the retailers would have a problem with that.
What about clickable links within the ebook? Again, you're dealing with an HTML format that will allow for that kind of stuff. Can I put in all kinds of clickable links within my ebook?
Yeah, you certainly can. Something to be aware of is that when you're pointing outside, don't forget that those links could go dead at some point if you're pointing to somebody else's website. So just be careful. And maybe even one of the things I suggest people use is one of these URL shorteners like Bitly or one of those. And especially find one that allows you to later change the target link so that the Bitly link or whatever stays the same in the ebook.
Yep.
But then if it goes out of, the website goes out of off the web or something, you can change that and point them back somewhere else.
Yeah, I just noticed that in something that I clicked on recently that, again, a link had gone dead, and it basically makes you feel frustrated and also makes the author look a bit sort of foolish.
Right.
What have I'm thinking about a few other things, but are there things that we haven't talked about in the last few minutes that you feel that we should discuss for people watching or listening?
Well, I think one of the questions that needs to be asked every time you look at doing an ebook is this content actually going to work as an ebook? A lot of times, especially with business books, especially books that have a lot of forms that you need to fill out or worksheets you need to do, it's going to take a lot of work to get that into an ebook format. And in some ways, it's not even possible in ebooks. So think about the functionality. think about what's going to actually work. And it may be necessary to say, I'm not going to take this content and turn it into an ebook. I'm going to make an ebook that is related to this content that will sell my print book or that will sell my services on my website or whatever, and use some of the content, but make sure that just basically not go one for one. This isn't the same thing as my print book. This is really just a condensation of some of my best rules for business success or whatever you're doing, and give people some information that helps them, but do it in a way that's, you're going to sell the thing for 99 cents, and it's basically going to be a lead generator to get you more work on your website or more sales of your print book. Just sometimes you got to think about whether or not it's an ebook or not.
Right. Well, similar to other things, I've seen people who were told that they have to have a video, and they produce video content which should be audio or text because all they're doing is sitting there looking into the camera talking, which is absurd and ridiculous to use video for that purpose.
Right.
Unless they just like the way they look. So another thing here is I'm wondering if you can sort of tell me and tell everybody watching or listening, who is your ideal client and why?
My ideal client, first of all, someone who pays. But what we like to see is authors or publishers who know where they want to go, who are familiar enough with the ebook world to not be completely surprised when I tell them, I'm sorry, we can't do that, or people who know enough about the technology just to be able to know where they're going and not to be completely lost. Obviously, we're more than happy to help anybody who comes to us, even if they don't know anything. I do a lot of training, a lot of education, both for our clients and for other people as well. But obviously, for the best solution for us is for us to find people who are already somewhat knowledgeable, who kind of know where they want to go, and we can help them get to that place.
Is there, Josh, for people that, again, are considering maybe, they may try and do this themselves, and even if we were to sit here and give them a 5-hour course on how to format their ebook, I know this to be a fact that they'll go through that ebook or through part of it or that training and then say, yeah, crap, let Joshua do it. So, yeah. I mean, I want to know what level of complexity, what level of technical knowledge is necessary to do this yourself so that the people, again, watching or listening can say to themselves, you know what, I'm not even going to attempt this because it's going to be a waste of my time.
That depends on the complexity of the book itself. If you're doing a novel, you don't need a lot of technical knowledge. I would suggest that you learn some of the processes and the HTML and how to build your own ebook files, and that's what I cover in my book. But if you really want to, you can do most of that work in Word and then upload the Word document to Amazon, and it should come through looking okay. On the other side, if you've got a very complex book, whether it's a children's book or a business book, that has lots of charts and graphs or lots of sidebars or pull quotes or whatever, you're more likely to have lots of issues in doing that yourself, unless you know HTML, CSS, XML, some of the core functionality of ebooks. There's also the benefit of coming to a service like us is that we do this every day, so we know what works and what doesn't already. It's not as simple as having your web designer build an ebook for you, because web designers are trained in web design, not in ebook development. They know HTML, but they don't know the HTML that's specific to ebooks, and they don't know how that's going to turn out and look on different devices. So we focus on that. That's our whole focus is ebooks. So we know what works and doesn't. So I would say, if you have a really complex book and you don't want to learn HTML, then don't even try it, because Word isn't going to help you. But if you have a very simple book, then you can use Word and you can do a pretty decent job that way.
I was thinking of just myself as well as the people that I think are the majority of people who are on my list, is that for us, I have this standard kind of format, which is, I've got, say, 20 chapters. Each chapter has a chapter title, and there's a table of contents at the front of it that just allows you to jump, directly to that chapter. Now, other than the other thing that you mentioned, which was the ability to jump from chapter to another chapter without going back to the table of contents, isn't this something where you or someone may have prepared sort of a pre-formatted Microsoft Word document that I can just go in there and paste my content into?
I haven't, and I don't know anyone else who has. It would be pretty simple to do it yourself, though. As long as those things are pretty straightforward, they're pretty consistent, then just marking your chapters with chapter heading, styles in Word, all of that is a pretty straightforward thing. And once you do it once, then you could, create a template file in Word to be able to do it again for your future books.
Got it. And so I'm making sure that I want people to only come to you who are truly qualified rather than calling you up saying, hey, Josh, I saw you talking with Fred and talk to me about ebooks. I know you enjoy doing that, but also you have, you need to make money doing it. So about what price level should they expect? What should they expect to pay if they come to you to sort of pre-qualify themselves?
For novels, there's a flat fee of $150 if it's under 400 pages. So that's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
For nonfiction, the price for standard nonfiction is $1.75 per page. If it's really complex, it has really complex stuff on every page, or it's a cookbook or whatever, then that's $2 per page. So that's pretty much what our pricing boils down to.
Got it. So if I've got a 100-page book, I can be expecting to spend $175.
Now, there's a minimum of $200 for any nonfiction project, so that would bump up against the minimum.
Got it. So it's either $200 minimum price or $1.75 per page, whichever is greater.
Right, exactly.
Perfect. And have you done more work in the fiction or the nonfiction realm?
Mostly nonfiction.
Mostly nonfiction. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that within the Amazon? So we're talking here primarily about Kindle formatting, but you do formatting for all the different formats as well. Can you tell me what percentage of ebooks are currently being sold via the Kindle versus the other platforms?
In the U.S., Amazon currently sells 60 to 70% of ebooks. It depends on who you listen to.
Right.
But the best numbers we have say 70%. And then Barnes & Noble comes in second. They sell around 20 to 25%. And then the other 5 or 10% that's left over is split between Apple and Apple and Sony and Kobo and a bunch of other smaller retailers.
Got it. Great. And if people want to contact you, Josh, and what I'm going to do is, for the purposes of this recording, I'm going to hit stop, but I want you to stay on for a second. For the purpose of people watching, listening, how do they contact you? What's the best way to get in touch?
You can go to our website, and if you have a file you want to upload, we have a quote upload form that you can fill out and put the file up there, and it'll go into our system. If you want to contact me directly, my email address is joshua@ebookarchitects.com, or you can call me at 512-939-3466.
Perfect, Josh. Thank you for being my guest.
Thanks, Fred.
I'm going to kill this